beautiful city, Auckland, New Zealand, and the city of Auckland. Alhamdulillah, it's a pleasure to be here, and I was told that this is now your winter starting very soon. This is winter. I wouldn't mind to live here actually. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين المصطفى أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. وقرآنه الحميد وقوله الحق. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل إنما أعظكم بواحدة أن تقوموا لله مثنى وفرادا ثم تتفكروا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Brothers and sisters, in Islam, we have what's known as the roots of the religion, something called usul al-deen. The roots of the religion are the fundamentals and the basis for this religion. Every Muslim needs to believe in this. And there are 5 of them. In the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, there are 5. In the other school of thought, there are 3. The first and foremost is the concept of and the belief in monotheism, tawheed. That this world, this universe has a creator, God created it. And this creator is only one, there is not 2 or 3 other ones. And there are many things associated in the description of Tawheed. You can find them in the books of Tawheed. This is not the topic for tonight. But that's one thing. Monotheism, Tawheed. Second is the belief, the fundamental belief in prophethood, Nubuwwah. So now that we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is a God, that God created us, the next question comes, what does this God want of us? Why did He create us? How does He want us to worship Him if that's what He created us for? So He sent us prophets. Those individuals whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen, they're infallible beings who come to guide us. So that's the second fundamental belief. Third, in the school thought of Ahlul Bayt, is the fundamental belief in the divine succession to prophethood. Imamah. That there are imams, divine successors to the Prophet. Fourth, the fundamental belief in the day of resurrection. That we live in this world, we can do whatever we want, but one day, when we leave this world, one day we will all be resurrected again and we will be held accountable for our actions. It's not going to be just vanity. Whatever we do here, it's done and that's it. It doesn't make much sense. So there has to be a day of resurrection. And fifth, in the school thought of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, again we believe in the divine justice, al-adal, divine justice. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is divinely just. In other words, everything that happens in this world is out of Allah's justice. I remember one day a person asked, this was back in the high school days, a person said that, if there is a God, babies would not be dying today. They would not. So this individual, the logic that this individual is using is that because children are dying, this indicates that there is no God. Now, those of you who study logic and philosophy, you can immediately tell this is an invalid argument. The argument is not valid. You have premise 1, premise 2, and the conclusion. The conclusion does not support, or the premises do not support the conclusion. So obviously it's an invalid argument. It's not even a sound argument. But here we tell this individual that, take a look at a lot of of the poverty that's happening in the world today, is this can we blame this on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Can we blame it on God? In fact, we blame it on the greed, human greed. Human is so greedy. He's responsible for a lot of this that we observe today. We cannot blame it on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nonetheless, these 5 fundamental points are known as usul al-deen, the roots of our religion. With regards to usul al-deen, the roots of our religion, we believe in them and we can prove them using reason and logic. We can believe in them without the need of me, for example, using a verse from the Holy Quran or a hadith of the Holy Prophet. No, it's something that we can prove with reason and rationale. That's why these 5 things in our faith, we have to believe in them with conviction. For example, I believe that Allah is one because I'm convinced this is the truth. Not because, for example, my father told me this is the way it is. So I love my father and I obey my father, so I'll believe in this. Or because, let's say, for example, the scholar that I follow, this marja that I follow tells me that there are prophets, so I have no. These things, in fact, we have to believe in them ourselves. We have to be convinced of what the truth is. Because it can be proved. And I'm sure I'll come to that. When it comes to furu' al-deen, however, the branches of the religion, like when it comes to salat, when it comes to siyam, when it comes to hajj, and so on and so forth. These things, yes, we either become scholars ourselves, fuqaha, jurists, that we can figure out what's right and what's wrong, what's halal and what's haram, or we follow a scholar. There's a third option, we won't discuss it for the time being. But nonetheless, these are the most 2 common options. Either one studies to become a jurist, or you follow a jurist. This is when it comes to furu' al-deen. With furu' al-deen, sometimes we have answers, sometimes we don't have answers. It's a matter of faith. Because once you submit and agree that there is a God, for example, once you submit and agree that this God sent us prophets, once you submit and agree that, for example, there are imams and there's a day of resurrection and Allah is just, now you submit. Khalas. That's it. قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين. I submit everything, my whole existence is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever Allah tells me to do, I'll do it. That's what furu' al-deen, the branches of the religion. For example, a person might ask, why is Salat al-Maghrib 3 raka'at and Isha is 4? I want to pray Maghrib 4 and Isha 3. You can't. Allah dictated. Allah said Maghrib 3, Isha 4. Khalas, that's the way it is. Finish. Why? Allah knows best. I submit, I agree, Allah is the greatest, Allah is the best, so now I submit. He tells me haram, haram, halal, halal. End of story. Sometimes there is a reason that we become aware of, sometimes there's no reason that we become aware of. But this is a matter of submission. That's why it is important in the religion to strengthen this foundation, the roots. The roots. That's really important. And you find there is a great book by the name of Kitab al-Ihtijaj. Those of you who read Arabic, you can refer to this book by Allama Tabrasi. In this book, and there's another great book which has been translated to English called Kitab al-Tawheed, the Shaykh al-Saduq. That book has been translated to English. Those 2 books are really great. In them, you'll find a lot of discussions between Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam and between some non-believers, atheists in his times. They were called az-Zanadiqa. So some people, at the time of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, they rejected religion altogether, and they used to come and question Imam al-Sadiq on a regular basis. For example, one day, one of those individuals by the name of Abu Shakir al-Disani, Disani comes to meet Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. He tells him, Ya Ja'far ibn Muhammad, Arini Rabbi. He calls Imam al-Sadiq by his name, Salamullahi alayh, and he tells him, show me my Lord. Show me, tell me there's a God, show me. Prove it to me. Imam had a son who was playing with an egg. He tells his son, can you pass this egg on to me, please? He passes the egg. He says, Ya Disani, do you see this egg? He said, yes. He says, look at this egg. On the outside, it has a hard shell. He said, yes. On the inside, there is a soft shell? He says, yes. He says, inside this egg, there is a white fluid, or a clear fluid, and there's a yellow fluid. He said, yes. He said, the yellow fluid does not mix with the white fluid or the clear fluid, nor does the white fluid mix with the yellow fluid. Do you agree? He said, yes. He said, nor is there anything from our side that can go inside this egg to tell us whether this egg is good or bad. We can't tell if this egg is good or bad. Nor is there anything that comes outside of this egg to tell us whether this egg is going to be a chick, or for example, a male or a female. We can't, nothing. He says, do you think all this happens by a coincidence? Now, Disani, although he was a Zindiq, he was an unbeliever, an atheist, yet he was a alim, he was a scholar. And there is a huge difference when you discuss with a alim or we discuss with a scholar, someone who uses logic and rationale, versus when you discuss with a jahil. And by jahil, ignorant, I don't mean someone who has not gone to university. No. Sometimes you might have a person with a PhD, or even a Nobel laureate, someone who's got the Nobel Prize. But he's jahil. He's jahil. وَجَحَدُوا بِهَا وَاسْتَيْقَنَتْهَا أَنفُسُهُم ظُلْمًا وَعُلُوًّا. Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira was one of those really well expressed in the Arabs time. You know, he was really good linguist, very good in language. One day he goes to the Prophet and he tells him, read to me some of your Quran. The Prophet reads verses of the Quran. He comes to Quraysh, he says to them, these verses, whatever Muhammad is reading, sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, whatever he's reading, this is not ordinary words. I hear a lot of poetry, and I know a lot of poetry. This is not poetry. This is something different. So he realized these verses of the Quran is different. Yet, he didn't want to believe in them. What can you do? There are people who are like that. Whatever you tell them, they just won't accept. That's why it's difficult to discuss with a jahil, with someone who just will not accept. Someone who says, it's my way or the highway. Someone who is stubborn. That's why sometimes the imams, alayhimussalam, someone used to come and ask them a question. They would tell them, ask the question of someone who wants to learn, not someone who's arrogant and just wants to show that he is right. It doesn't work that way. I mean, look at the world of academia, the academic world. In many cases, scientists do not agree. In fact, I'll give you an example. In 2005, the Nobel Prize for Chemistry was awarded to 3 chemists, 3 of them, for some experiment, or for example, for some invention they did in chemistry called metathesis. One of them, the reason he won the Nobel Prize, he was included, one of them, is because he discovered the mechanism of the reaction. How does the reaction actually work? He figured it out. Back in 1971, he figured out the mechanism. He said, this is how the reaction occurs. At the same time, the second person who also won the Nobel Prize, he had proposed a second mechanism, an alternative mechanism, he himself. So you had 2 people, 2 mechanisms. In 1974, 3 years later, the second person conceded. He said, you know what? I agree with the first guy. His mechanism is more accurate than mine. His mechanism is right. My mechanism, I proposed it, but it's wrong. That mechanism appears to be more accurate. So I consent. He's right. Many years later, they both won the Nobel Prize. In fact, a third person also was included. But what I'm trying to get at, in the world of academia, you have people who have differing opinions. It happens. One scientist says one thing, another scientist says another thing, one scholar says one thing, another scholar says another thing. However, once the logic is shown, once the experiment is shown, once the proofs are laid, once the logic makes sense, tell us, it's done, and people can see, this is it, that's it. So why don't we apply the same principle when it comes to the discussion about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about faith, about religious matters? Let's apply the same principle here. So here Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam used this logic with Abu Shakir al-Disani, who was a scholar, he was a alim but was Indian. Abu Shakir said to Imam Sadiq, he said, nobody has ever used this kind of logic with me. This makes really good sense. And he says, I submit. Khalas. And he did sujood, and he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, and then nataqa shahada thaniya, the second shahada as well. That's one example. A second example of a beautiful discussion between Imran al-Sabi'i and Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. Imran also, he discussed with Imam al-Rida a lengthy discussion. You'll find it in Kitab al-Ihtijaj by Allama al-Farwasi. Few pages long discussion. Until the time of Salat came. When the time of Salat came, Imam al-Rida alayhi salam told Imran, he said, I'm going to have to call it off now, the discussion, because it's the time of Salat. Imran says, wait, ya ibn Rasulullah, wait. فَلَقَدْ رَقَّ قَلْبِي. He says, I'm softening here, I'm accepting your logic here. You make sense. Imam al-Sadiq says, that's good, but you're going to have to wait because it's the time of Salat. Look how important Salat is. Even when the Imam alayhi salam is guiding a person to Islam, and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tells Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Ali, لَيَهْدِيَنَّ اللَّهُ بِكَ رَجُلًا وَاحِدًا خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِمَّا طَلَعَتْ عَلَيْهِ الشَّمْسِ. If Allah were to guide one person through you, it is better than having this whole universe. What's this universe? It will one day end, finish. Your life will end and finish. But if a person is guided through you, this is not just one person. This person will get married, he will have children, his children will have... So this will continue for generations to come. Until maybe the day of judgment. That's an investment. That's a true investment. So even though Imam al-Rida was in this kind of investment, where he could have guided Imran al-Sabi'i, which he was a very well-known debater and scholar of his time. Imam tells him it is the time of Salat. Salat comes. So let us think ourselves, how many of us actually take so much care of our Salat as well? When it's the time of Salat, how many of us say, you know what, let me go and stop what I'm doing here and say my few rakat of Salat. Or usually we come up with excuses, let me finish my work, let me finish my school, let me finish this, let me do that. There's a rugby game or there's a football game, let me finish the game, a movie is playing, let me watch the movie, or I'm playing my Xbox or whatever it is you're playing, and so on and so forth. And we don't want to give it up for our Salat. Nonetheless, Imam al-Rida goes to pray, comes back, continues the discussion with Imran, until he does sujood again, and he says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. That's when it comes, for example, to proving that there is a God, there is a creator. There is a creator. How could one accept the fact that this whole universe, for example, came through a coincidence? How can that be acceptable? How can one accept such a thing? When it's all so perfectly designed, so perfectly laid off, and then all by coincidence. Okay, a coincidence occurs how many times? Once, twice, 10 times, 100, but 1,000,000 times? How is that even possible? That's why there is a person who studies some mathematics by the name of William Dembski. William Dembski, he used the chaos theory. Those of you who studied math, there's something called chaos theory. He used a probability as well. He says if you have, for example, I'm going to simplify what he said, but if you have 10 pebbles in your hand, 10 pebbles, and you number them, 1, 10, 1, 2, 10, then you throw them on the floor. Then you mark where each one of those pebbles fell. So 1, 2, 3, 10. And then you collect them. And then you throw them a second time. What is the probability that each one of those pebbles will fall exactly where it fell the first time? It will land exactly where it landed the first time. What is that probability? So he did the mathematics. He showed the probability is almost zero. Almost zero. So he said that if this is the case with mathematics, this is mathematics, laws of math. He said, then how can I accept that this whole universe occurred through a random process that happened once and twice and 10 times, and 100 times, a million. How is that possible? He said, that's just not acceptable to me. I can't take that. A second scientist came who was a professor at one of the best universities in the United States called Lehigh University. Lehigh. His name is actually Michael Behe. Michael Behe is a biochemist. He studies bacteria. Now bacteria, of course, is a one-cell organism, just one cell. We have billions of cells in our bodies. Bacteria is just one. But within this one cell, you've got so many machineries that exist in this one cell. Oh, subhanAllah, this one little organism, yet it's so complicated. So this one cell, he studied it very well. And then he came to the conclusion that all these machineries within the cell of the bacterium are so interdependent. They need one another. It would not just make any sense for one machinery to exist without the other. It will not do anything. It can't. Once you put it all together, then you'll have something functional. And he says, how is it possible that you had one machinery in existence, and then it just sat there, it didn't do anything until an evolution process occurred for the second machinery to exist, and the third and the fourth? He says, that's impossible. I cannot accept that. So he introduced, and he is, interestingly, he's a scientist, pure scientist. He introduced a theory that he called the intelligent design theory. Intelligent design. Which means basically this whole universe has an intelligent designer. Someone who designed it. He says you can call him whatever you want. God, something else. Says that's irrelevant to him. It's irrelevant. What do you call him? But there is a designer. Intelligent designer. So here we see, interestingly, scientists, mathematicians, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam using logic and philosophy to prove indeed there has to be a creator. There is a God. It just can't be. There has to be someone who created this whole universe and who planned everything that occurs through it. And that's, of course, what is the difference between the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the creation of a human. When a human being creates, how many times, I don't know if you guys remember, a couple of years ago, Toyota, the big car company, in the United States, they made a huge recall. Remember the huge recall? It was like, massive. The biggest recall in the franchise history. So they had to recall everything. They made a mistake. They may have a problem. This is the creation of man. It can have defects. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation is perfect. And that's why Musa alayhi salam, when Fir'aun asked him, who is your Lord? When he asked him and Harun, both of them, he said, قَالَ مَنْ رَبُّكُمَا يَا Musa? He said, who's your God? Tell me, because I'm also a God. What's the difference between your God and my God, and me? قَالَ أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى. Fir'aun said, I'm a God. So you claim you have a God, and I'm also a God. Let's see what's the difference between your God and me. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. Interestingly, the answer Musa ﷺ gave, he said, my Lord, God, is the one who created everything, أَعْطَى كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلْقَهُ, created everything, ثُمَّ هَدَى, then gave it guidance. Gave it guidance. لَلشَّمْسُ يَنْبَغِي لَهَا أَن تُدْرِكَ الْقَمَرَ وَلَا اللَّيْلُ سَابِقُ النَّهَارِ وَكُلٌّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ. You'll never see, for example, the sun saying that, you know what, I'm too tired. Every day I rise and, sun and set, rise and set. I'm going to take a vacation for a week. Vacation. خلاص. I'll just go and never come back for a week. Or the moon says, you know what, I'm tired. How come I come up at night and the sun comes in the daytime? I want to come in the daytime as well. How come this never happens? If the moon is controlling itself, then why wouldn't it do so? If the sun is controlling itself, then why would it not do so? It's controlling itself. Decides, I don't want to come up today. I'm on break. Just like you guys take, spring break and a summer break and whatever. I want a spring break as well. How come? This, Imam al-Sadiq used this as an example that the sun does not have a control of its own. It doesn't control itself. There is someone who's controlling it. So you can see all this is a proof that there is this. All through logic, rationale. We're not using an ayah from the Quran or a hadith from for example, from Rasulullah sallallahu. No, it's all using logic. Reason. You can prove it. Makes sense. Now, there are people who say, you know what, this makes sense. I agree. I submit to it. And there are those who, no matter what you say to them, they'll say, I don't accept. Of what can you do to them? What can you do? The Prophet ﷺ read this Quran to Abu Jahl. He read it to him. And he also read the Quran to Abu Dhar al-Ghafari. Look at Abu Dhar al-Ghafari, how the Quran transformed him. How the verses changed him. From being a thief, he was a thief before he became a Muslim. He used to come up at night and steal from people, from caravans who used to walk in the desert. He was a thief. This Abu Dhar. He hears the Quran, he listens to the Quran, and all of a sudden, this man becomes waliyun min awliya Allah as-salihin. Transformation. This is Abu Dhar al-Ghafari. And Abu Jahl, he listens to the same Quran from the Holy Prophet, the same Prophet ﷺ. But at the time when he is dying, he says, Amantu billahi wal-Uzza. When he's dying, the Prophet said, even Fir'aun is better than Abu Jahl. At least Fir'aun, when he was dying, he said, I believe in the God of Musa and Harun. When he was dying. Abu Jahl said, no, I believe in the Lat and the idols. So what is the difference? It's Abu Jahl, what can he do? Is it our Prophet's fault? Wal-iyadu billah? No, of course not. Is it wal-iyadu billah the Quran's fault? No, it's not. Abu Jahl. Otherwise, how come you have Abu Dhar and Abu Jahl? Abu Dhar accepted the logic. He accepted the admonishment. He was willing to take it in because it's logic, rationale, it makes sense. Abu Jahl didn't want to accept, even though he knows this is the truth. That's why the Quran says, وَجَحَدُوا بِهَا وَاسْتَيْقَنَتْهَا أَنفُسُهُم ظُلْمًا وَعُلُوًّا. Their selves agreed to this. They realized this is the truth. They realized. You know, brothers, one day, when I was doing my PhD, I had a colleague, I was telling the brothers today, I had a colleague of mine who was doing his master's. He said to me, when they were just having a casual conversation, he says, this world is it. Once we die, it's finished. That's it. Once we live, we live whatever we live in this world. When we die, so. And then, interestingly, look what he said. He said, even though it's sad to think like this. That's what he said. He said, it's sad to think like this. So I told him, subhanAllah, the instinct. Allah has given the instinct to every human. Every human being realizes this is not, it can't be the end. It's so sad. That's what he's saying. I told him, well, you know what, my friend? It does not have to be sad. If you believe that there is a God and there's a day of judgment, then it's not sad anymore. Then there will be justice. Justice will be served. This person who comes and kills 1 million people, for example, these dictators that we see in the world, and then he takes the gun and shoots himself. That's it? Khalas, it's done? Finish? Is that it? Where is justice there? But if we believe that, no, there is a day of judgment. This man will be held responsible for the 1 million that he killed. This is like Al-Hajjaj. One day he brings somebody, Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi, a dictator, also a dictator of this time. Abdul Malik ibn Marwan was the Umayyad Khalifa. He appointed Al-Hajjaj as the governor of Basra. Then the governor of Hijaz. Then the governor of Kufa. MashaAllah, the guy was very well. Multitasking. Multitasking. And he says, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, this is what he says, his quote. He says, لو جاءت كل أمة بلعينها وجئنا بالحجاج لغلبناهم. He says, if every nation, if we have a competition in the world today, who is the worst of every nation? Go to every nation and tell them, bring us your worst guy. He says, and we present Al-Hajjaj, will win. No competition. There's no competition with Al-Hajjaj. This is what he's saying about him. And he appoints him as the governor. Nonetheless, Al-Hajjaj one day brings a man, and he tells him, choose, how do you want me to kill you today? How would you like me to kill you? Democracy. We have democracy. No problem. I'm going to kill you either way, but choose. I'll give you the option. This person looked at him and he said, it's up to you. How do you want Allah to kill you? How do you want Allah to kill you on the day of judgment? That's the way you can kill me. Allah says, كُلَّمَا نَضِجَتْ جُلُودُهُمْ. Every time their skin gets fried, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remake them in Jahannam wal-'iyadu billah. Every time. No, there's no death. The continuous pain, continuous punishment and torture in Jahannam wal-'iyadu billah. So he says, how do you want Allah to kill you? Kill me that way, and Allah will kill you the same death on the day of judgment. This is justice. Justice. That's justice. So you can prove all this through logic and common sense. Now, some people say, Islam is a religion that puts restrictions on me. Okay, you tell me logic and all this. Okay, I give in to the logic, no problem. Okay, no problem. I submit. But you tell me now, okay, I become a Muslim, come and pray 5 times a day. I'm a Muslim, go and pray. I see my friends going partying, I can't go to party with them. Here I am on Sunday night, sitting here listening to this guy talking to me about religion. When my friends are, for example, enjoying themselves, watching a game, doing whatever it is they're doing. Islam says, you know what, wear the hijab, don't take off your hijab. I see all those friends of mine, they're all wearing whatever they're wearing, putting all the makeup that they're putting it on, and me, I have to put too many restrictions. We say, hold on a second, let's think a little bit. Here, this country, alhamdulillah, is a so-called free country, correct? This country is a free country, relatively speaking. Relatively speaking, there's democracy, right? Now, in this country, if you want to drive, what do you have to do? You have to get a license. In order for you to get a license, what do you have to do? You have to learn the rules and regulations of traffic, correct? And then they have to test you, correct? Part of the rules, among the rules, is when you see a red light, you what? You stop. You see a green light, you go. Except in the Middle East, where everything is like, never mind, Middle East is different. Say one day, a guy was driving in those Middle Eastern countries, it was really, mashallah, advanced. Huge red light, he goes through it, no problem. Then the police stops and says, well, didn't you see that huge red light, man? Are you blind? He says, officer, wallah, I saw the red light, but I didn't see you. It's you I didn't see. If I had seen you, I would have stopped. So nonetheless, so we have to take these laws. Now, these laws, they say, at the red light you stop, green light you go. When you come to a stop sign, you have to stop. When you see people crossing the street, stop. Now a person will say, hold on a second, this is against my freedom. I want to drive any way I want. Why do you stop? Why do you restrict my freedom here? Why do you tell me to stop at a red light? I want to drive anywhere. Freedom, right? This is a free country. I don't want to stop at the stop sign. Why do you tell me to stop at a stop sign? That's restricting my freedom. If a pedestrian cross, I don't care. My freedom. He has to watch for me, not I watch for him. What will the government say? Will they say, yeah, sure, yeah, freedom? Of course not. They'll tell you no. Freedom, yes, you have freedom, but as long as you do not hurt yourself or hurt others. We've put these laws in, the laws of traffic are introduced to protect you and to protect others. So that when people drive on the streets or walk on the streets, they can walk in peace or drive in peace. I see, for example, my light is green and his light is red. I know I can go through the light without having to worry much. It gives me a peace of mind, gives me a sense of security. When I cross the street, I know this guy who's driving, he will stop for me. Inshallah, yani. So he'll stop for me. Gives me a peace of mind. Gives me a peace of mind. So even though these laws may appear to restrict my freedom, they may appear to restrict me, but these laws are introduced to actually give me the freedom, to liberate me, to allow me to move in peace, to allow me to move with respect to others and to myself. Similarly, the laws of Islam, Allah puts restrictions, but He says these restrictions are not really restrictions. These are rules to liberate you, to give you freedom, to allow you to move further in the society, to progress. Don't drink. Drinking is haram. Because I don't want you to lose your mind. You lose your mind, you may drive, kill other people. You can kill yourself. You can go harm other people. You know how many, I don't know about your country here, but in Canada, domestic violence due to drinking is huge in Canada these days. People drink, and then they lose their mind, so they go beat their spouses. Or they beat their children. This is real. They lose their minds. So it's a huge issue now. The government is trying to address it. But they address it with band-aid solutions. These are what we call band-aid solutions. not the real solution. Islam comes for real solutions. It's haram, period. Plus, a person says, okay, no problem, I'll sit at my room, I'll lock the door and I'll drink all I want. Islam says, no, even then, you're harming yourself. You're killing your brain cells. You're damaging your body. Plus, even a very, very small amount of alcohol. Research has done this. You can go and look it up, by the way. It's not me saying. Even the legal amount of alcohol, I don't know what's your legal amount there. There's 0.08 over there in Canada. Even with 0.08% of alcohol in your blood system, they have shown that it slows your reaction tremendously. Your reaction is slowing tremendously. Your ability to think is slowed down. Islam says you are an individual who contributes to society. When you are, for example, an engineer, you're an engineer whether you're at work or whether you're in your house, you're still an engineer. When you're a doctor, whether you're at home or whether you're in the clinic, you're a doctor. You're a teacher, whether you're in the school or whether you're at home, you're still a teacher. And we want this potential of yours to be utilized to the max. We don't want it to be hindered. That's why alcohol is not allowed. Haram. Hijab. Islam says, do not look at the figure of the individual, the lady. This society just gives sizes and looks, and you have to look like this, and you have to dress like this. Islam says, look at my intellect. Look at my character. This is what I contribute to society. Don't look at my figure and my beauty and all this stuff. In fact, a few years ago, a French magazine, believe it or not, a French magazine, they printed the pages or pictures of several models and actresses without makeup. No makeup. And the whole reason is they wanted to tell the girls, the youth, that you know what you see in the models is plastic. It's not real. This is what they really look like, just like you. Because a lot of the girls, they, for example, become anorexic. They don't eat enough food. There's an anorexia problem. Because they say, look at those people, this is how they look, I should look like them. They don't realize this is actually not real, it's plastic. This is how beautiful she looks, I want to look as beautiful as her. They don't realize it's plastic, this is not real, this is not... So even they're complaining. Even they're complaining. Islam says, hold on, forget all this mess. Don't put band-aid solutions, go to the real solution. Hijab, the modest dress. You cover your whole body with the exception of the face and the hands up to the wrist. And don't put this gallon of makeup like some of our sisters do, mashallah, and a ton, for example, or a gallon of perfume. Wear it properly. Don't wear these tight clothes that reveal more than what they conceal. Make sure it's loose, and so on. So this would bring dignity to the society, respect to the society, and to yourself, to everyone. So these are the rules of Islam. In the ayah that we just recited from Surah 7, Allah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قل, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Holy Prophet, say, إِنَّمَا أَعِظُكُمْ بِوَاحِدَةٍ. If I were to summarize this whole Quran for you, summarize with one sentence. The whole religion of Islam, I want to summarize it to you in one sentence. قل إِنَّمَا أَعِظُكُمْ بِوَاحِدَةٍ. One thing. One thing. I have one advice for you. One thing to tell you. What is it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet, أَن تَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ مَثْنَى وَفُرَادَى ثُمَّ تَتَفَكَّرُوا. What does that mean? أن تقوم. Qiyam means, of course, you get up. Get up means you do something. You're constantly active in the society. In the society, you always should be active. Muslims, you know, according to the laws of Islam, they should always be active. A man came to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam one day. Imam al-Sadiq told him, what do you do for a living? He said, I'm retired. He said, there's no such thing as retirement in Islam. What is retirement? He says, go back to work. He says, tomorrow go back to work. There's no retirement. What do you mean you're retired? When you're working, you're thinking, you're constantly interacting with people, you're involved. When you're retired, I don't have anything to do, so you start sitting at home, watching television, maybe walking, going out for a walk, but you're not as active and dynamic anymore. Islam says, be active, go ahead, work. Of course, don't kill yourself in work. You know, balance, balance. Islam is about balance. Dunya and akhirah. Another person, for example, you tell him, why don't you come to mosque? Wallah, busy. Yes, I know you're busy, but remember, this is also important. Make this, you know, interesting, they say a busy man has time for everything. That's why he's busy. He has time for everything. So he should also have time for the mosque as well. Okay.
So we have to attend every Thursday night, every Saturday, for example, every Friday when there is a majalis. And not only to just one center. If I know, for example, this center, for example, has a program every Thursday. Center X has a program every Friday. Center Y has a program every Saturday. Let me try to come as often as I can. As often. And bring my children. Because this has a huge impact on them. So we need to be active. We constantly, لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. خلاص, مَا سَعَى. لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسان. That human will not get but what he works hard and strives for. Whether this human is a Muslim, a kafir, a munafiq, whatever, he will get it. لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسان. The human being. If a person, for example, a kafir, he sits down and starts building muscles, he'll become muscular. He'll get the muscles. And a mu'min says, no, Allah, Ya Allah, give me muscles. Give me muscles. Of course it's not going to happen. It's not going to work out. Work hard. Work hard. So Islam says, go work. Go work. You have to be active. But when you're active, أَن تَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ. When you're active, you work for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to get muscles, not just to Allah, so that people look at me and look, mashallah, look how strong he is. But rather to be healthy, to help people in my powers, in my strength. I want to get rich, not so that people say, oh, look at what a beautiful car he has, what a nice house. So that I can help people with my money. I can build orphanages, I can build centers, I can build schools, I can help families, I can support widows. That's why I want to become rich. Not for me, to help others. That's great. Whatever you do it for the sake of Allah. That's what's difficult. أَن تَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ. تَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ مَثْنَا وَفُرَادًا. Whether you're in groups, when you do group activities, do them for the sake of Allah. We want, for example, to establish a school. We don't want to do it just because, the other center has a school and we want to compete with them. We want to show them that our school is better than yours. No, this is nonsense. That's unfortunate. Sometimes it happens like, unfortunately. Some people have this limited vision and limited thinking. No, rather we want to establish a school to complement your school. So let us learn from you. Help us. Let us work together. That's fantastic. That's great. So when you do things in groups, or whether you do them in person, individually. I'll wake up for Salat al-Layl, which is highly recommended, because I want Allah to be pleased with me. Not so that people say, oh look, mashallah, he prays Salat al-Layl, what a great mu'min. Riya wal-'iyadu billah, to show off. So it's all part of this equation. One of the professors in Tehran University, this person is a professor of Ilahiyat, Islamic studies. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. So this professor, I think people needed a break, or maybe it's a sign that I should finish. We don't have a clock. Okay, now. This professor of Islamic studies told me one day, he said he knows, back a while back, nearly in the last century, there was a professor also of Islamic studies in Iran. This professor wrote a book. He wrote a book. Then he took this book to a friend of his, to a colleague of his. He told him, can you please... That's great. This is your winter? So he said this professor of Islamic studies in Iran, he wrote a book. Then he took it to his friend, a colleague of his. He said, can you please review this book, read it. Tell me what you think, if there's anything I should correct, because I want to publish this book. His friend took the book, he read it, he said, mashallah, this is a very nice book. You know what? Let me publish it under my name. Back in the old days, there's no laptop and computers, and there's only one copy. So he took it, he changed the name of the author. Back in the old days, they used to write with wet ink. The wet ink, you can easily delete it, erase it. He deleted the name, he wrote his name, he took the book, he published it. The book was published. It gained some recognition. People were very pleased with it. This guy became famous. A year later, this person who stole the book, He hears someone knocking at his door. He opens the door, he finds the same guy, the original author of the book. He thought he's there to argue with him, to fight with him. On the contrary, he came to him and he said, listen, last year that book was published and alhamdulillah it was very good. Here is volume 2. Here is volume 2 of the book. Please publish it again. So I got shocked. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you know, it doesn't matter under whose name does the book go out. My name, your name. Allah knows who the true author is. Allah knows the author. So on the day of judgment, Allah will give me my reward. But why should I be selfish and deprive people from the knowledge that's in this book? People apparently, they found the last book very useful, had good knowledge. So whether it's your name, mine, Allah knows. Here, take volume 2 and print it, please. So this guy felt very bad. How great manners this guy has. This is a true muttaqi. This is أَن تَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ. This is the example of this. أَن تَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ. You work but for the sake of Allah. I don't care. People tell me, well done, great. They tell me, no, poorly done. Alhamdulillah, I don't care. As long as I'm in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm doing my whatever I'm doing, fi sabilillah. قُرْبَةً إِلَى اللَّهِ ta'ala. Let people attack me, let people kill me. I don't care. Imam Hussein was standing against 30,000 people or 100,000 people. Did he care? He didn't care. I don't care. I know I'm on the truth. I'm on the haqq. So why? So he gave him the second. So this is the second person now, felt so guilty, so bad. Great manners, great. So he published a foreword to the second volume, and he put the name of the original author. That's how people came to know this. He put his name, he said, you know what, this is what happened between me and this individual. He is the true author of the book, not me. This is أَن تَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ مَثْنَا وَفُرَادًا ثُمَّ تَتَفَكَّرُوا. Then think, reflect a little bit. Let a person sit down and say, what have I done in my life? What have I accomplished? How much have I served Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam? How much have I done for them? Imam Hussein gave his whole life for me, so that I can become a mu'min, so I can learn about Islam. What have I done to Imam Hussein alayhi salam? What have I done to Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam? How many times do I do ghibah, backbiting, on a daily basis? Sometimes we don't even think about it. It's part of like, you know, like salt in food. You know, you have to have it there, spice it up a little bit. The conversation. Haram. It's haram. How many times do I procrastinate and delay my salat for no reason? I have to pray. How many people get the opportunity to go to Hajj? They have the money, they have the time, they have the means, I'm too young. I'm still, 20 years old. When I become 60, inshallah, I'll go to Hajj. Now it's too early. It's not right. A lady says, I'm so beautiful, I want to show my beauty, I don't want to wear the hijab. Later, inshallah, also when I become 50, 60 years old, when I become a grandmother, then inshallah I'll wear the hijab. How do you know you're going to live until you're 50, 60 years old, first of all? On the day of judgment, it is said that Allah will bring Maryam, salamullahi alayha, Maryam ibn Imran, and will bring the lady who did not wear the hijab, the lady who did not. And he will ask the lady, why didn't you wear the hijab? She say, Ya Allah, you made me so beautiful. And this test was so difficult for me. That's why, I wanted to show my beauty. You made me beautiful. Allah will say to this individual, look at Maryam, salamullah. Who's more beautiful, you or her? And of course, Maryam, salamullah alayha, her face will be bright and shining. Allah gave her beauty, salamullah alayha. She will say, she's more beautiful than me. He says, how come she was a chaste, modest woman? How come she put on her hijab? She took the dress of modesty. What's your excuse? No excuse. This is what we learned from Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. That everything they did fi sabilillah, قربة إلى الله. إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. We feed you, we give you, we help you for the sake of Allah. We don't expect a reward from you, nor do we even expect a thank you, a gratitude. إِنَّا نَخَافُ مِنْ رَبِّنَا يَوْمًا عَبُوسًا قَمْطَرِيرًا فَوَقَاهُمُ اللَّهُ شَرَّ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ وَلَقَاهُمْ نَضْرَةً وَسُرُورًا. Allah safeguarded them from the difficulty of the Day of Judgment. But in this dunya, they went through a lot of tests. They went through a lot of difficulties. And especially Fatima Zahra Salamullahi alayha. Look at the Prophet, after the Prophet's death, how much pain she endured, how much difficulty she went through. On the last day of her life, she tells Amir al-Mu'mineen Salamullahi alayhi, Ya Ali, vacate the house because I have something important to tell you. So Amir al-Mu'mineen sends the children outside. He comes, he starts crying, and she starts crying. Then she tells him, Ya Ali, today is my last day in this dunya. I will be joining my father, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And I have few words of a will that I would like to give you. He says, yes, Ya Fatima, what do you want me to do? She said, Ya Ali, ادفني ليلا إذا نامت العيون وهجعت الأبصار. Oh Ali, bury me in the middle of the night when people have gone to sleep, for I don't want those people who hurt me, who took my right away from me, who killed my baby to attend my funeral. And Ya Ali, hide my grave, for I don't want them to even know where my grave is located. He said, yes, Ya Fatima, I will do that. Then she tells him, Ya Ali, وَعَلَيْكَ مِنْ بَعْدِي بِالْحَسَنِ وَالْحُسَيْنِ فإنهما من بعدي يتيمين بالأمس فقدا جدهما واليوم يفقدان أمهما. Oh Ali, and after me take care of my children Hassan and Hussein. Never yell at them, never shout at them, for after my death they will have no one to turn to other than you, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. I say, Ya Fatima, how much love you have to your children Hassan and Hussein, but I wish you would see them after your death. One was poisoned and the other one was slaughtered and killed all alone in Karbala. Then when she continued with her will, Amir al-Mu'mineen left to the masjid. Asma said, I sat down with Fatima. She told me, Ya Asma, سأذهب لأنام ساعة فبعدها ناديني فإن أجبتك فأجبتك وإن لم أجبك فاعلمي أني قد رحلت إلى جوار أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. Oh Asma, I'm going to rest for some time. Then after some time call me. If I respond to you, then it shall be so. But if I don't respond, then be aware that I have joined my father Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Asma said, I sat down reading the Quran. After some time I called, Ya Mawlat, Ya Zahra, Ya Ta'mul ma ajabatni. I called her, she did not reply back. I called, Ya bint Rasulillah, تقول ما أجابتني. فذهبت إلى حجرتها كشفت الغطاء عن وجهها وإذا بي أرى فاطمة قد فارقت الحياة. She said, I saw that Fatima has joined her father Rasulullah. At that moment دخل علي الحسن والحسين قال يا أسماء أين أمنا فاطمة؟ قلت لهما سيدي إن أمكما نائمة. فركض الحسن إلى حجرة أمه كشف الغطاء عن وجهها نادى أخي حسين إن أمنا ميتة. فركضا إلى مسجد رسول الله صارخين نادبين باكيين. فرآهما سلمان قال ما الخبر يا ابن رسول الله؟ قال يا سلمان عجبا للسماء لم تنطبق على الأرض فلقد ماتت أمنا فاطمة. فركض أمير المؤمنين إلى المسجد وهو يصرخ وينادي إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. Raise your hands for the dua. إن شاء الله هذه لحظة استجابة الدعاء. Here we are, the guest of فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام. And in her majlis, remembering her, inshallah, this is the time when the dua is accepted. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'a wa yakshifu as-su'. Amma yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'a wa yakshifu as-su'. مشارق الأرض ومغاربها يا الله. إلهي بالزهراء فاطمة شافي وعافي جميع مرضى المؤمنين والمؤمنات يا الله، على الخصوص من أوصلنا بالدعاء منهم. اللهم اقض حوائجهم، شافي مرضاهم، ارحمهم برحمتك الواسعة يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم اغفر لي ولوالدي وارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. اجزهما بالإحسان وبالسيئات غفرانا. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي، ربنا وتقبل دعاء. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج واجعلنا من شيعته وأنصاره وأعوانه والمستشهدين بين يديه. اللهم كن لوليك حجة ابن بالزهراء فاطمة، بظلامة الزهراء، بمحسن الزهراء، إلا ما رزقتنا شفاعة الزهراء يا الله يا الله يا الله، لقضاء الحوائج ولشفاء المرضى ولكشف هذه الغمة عن هذه الأمة ولتعجيل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان، وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات لا سيما أرواح أمات الجالسين والحاضرين والمؤسسين. رحم الله من يقرأ السورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.